po' italiano, ok? Ci troviamo ai giardini. Non so che...
Come, come. Come in here, where it is cool. Sit down. Sit down. I know who you are. Piccolo has waited at the key for your arrival. I hope he did not frighten you. You see, we knew when you would arrive and why you have come. You come from my lady, the Marchesa de Mignalotta di San Vincenzo e Piro. You are here to collect the special compass and deliver it to Venezia, yes? You were followed by 2 men, but do not worry. Piccolo has taken care of them. They will not trouble you further. It is a very warm day. Piccolo says you almost fainted in the heat. I will pour you some chilled wine. There you are, my friend. You have something to show me. Very good. I knew it was you the moment I heard you were on your way. I have been waiting for you for a very long time. Yes, you are the one. I am not yet finished with the compass. It is a very special piece and requires a careful work. These parts must go in a very particular order. But in truth, I could not know exactly until you came. Now with you here, the correct sequence will reveal itself. No, it is not a normal compass. And I will need something from you. Not money. Something more personal than that. But do not worry. I will get it in good time. As we sit in the cool afternoon, we will talk. while I work. The important thing is that a certain Maltese society does not know what we are doing, or that you have this compass. So when you leave, Piccolo will escort you to my private vessel that will take you to Masila. It is good to have someone to talk to. Piccolo is not a good conversationalist, but he is very good with the blade. Do not be afraid, my friend. You are sent from my lady, selected especially so you can trust me. No harm will come to you. May I see your hand? Now I can see what she sees in you. Yes, unassuming, very sharp mind, and a hidden courage, and a few surprising talents that have yet to show themselves. It is most fortuitous that she has found you at long last. But you are fatigued from the heat and the long journey. Relax there in a comfortable, soft chair, and while I work, I shall tell you a story. As all good stories, it tells of a war, love, treachery, tragedy, and a journey, but also of great loyalty, determination, and resilience. It begins with a twin brother and sister who grew up together on a beautiful island a very, very long time ago. Their mother was very beautiful, and their father was kind and wise, and they had everything two children could wish for. When the time came for them to become educated for greater things, their father found the most capable and knowledgeable teachers for them. For he was no ordinary father. He was the ruler of a rich kingdom, famed in all the known world for its extensive trade networks, architectural skill, and also for its art and culture. Some said that this kingdom kept the secret of metallurgy, So wise were its rulers, and so unrivaled its maritime trade, that they had long had no enemies, and their population enjoyed peace and prosperity. This came at a cost, however. As you have guessed, the brother and sister were no ordinary children, but they were the prince and princess who grew up in the great palace, playing amongst its grand pillars, looking out to sea from the high, colourfully decorated terraces to watch the ships come and go, without a second thought for its running water, lush gardens, and beautiful lighting that were famed far and wide. Under the tutelage of their father's oldest and wisest advisers, the brother Kyrtos and sister Aliotta learned philosophy, languages, poetry, music, and astronomy. Their father, as his father before him, placed much hope in the future of his kingdom in his son and daughter, but they would not understand how much hope until later. In time, the young prince studied the well-kept arts of metallurgy, navigation, and city planning, proving a natural talent in horsemanship and gymnastics, the sports practiced amongst raging bulls to hone the skills of great warriors. The princess, according to her station, learned statecraft, account management, and excelled at the skills of swimming and sailing as well as any of her father's masters. They had very wise teachers who carried the arts of their ancestors, and they were exceptional students. After some years, the young prince and princess began to show a real gift for that position to which they were born, each complementing the other in skill and knowledge, but more, because they were twins, they had an uncanny intuition for communication with each other in thought, action, and nuance. One day, the princess was summoned by her father. He said to her, "Daughter, you are beautiful, but you are not stupid. It is time I revealed to you how our island holds supremacy and keeps peace in our world. It is only through the maintenance of the most cutting-edge military might that we can control commerce and avoid the destruction of war for ourselves and for the other kingdoms. But the time has come at long last, as our forefathers foretold, that others have become jealous of our skills and power, and have threatened us with war and trade blockades. I had hoped that I would be good enough ruler to avoid these, but I cannot change the hearts of men. There are those, some of my closest advisers amongst them, who would like us to expand our military in response to these threats, to build a great force and attack our neighbors. It is not our way, and it must not come to pass. For as I was taught, and as you have been taught, my daughter, it is the very threat of violence that keeps the peace, and this precarious balance is broken with the first act of war. The princess listened to her father, knowing that her island and her family had been the inheritor of a secret power. She had seen the rows of swords, metal battle axes, long-bladed spears, shields, and even armor in the island's arsenal. Down below in the catacombs under the palace. As a girl, she and Kirtos had crept into the armory and played with the weapons until they were caught and scolded. Aliotta had touched the point of a sharp arrowhead, piercing her tiny finger, and Kirtos had pretended that an upturned war helmet was a small chariot for his little wooden men. Those innocent days faded when they had been taught that these skills, these weapons, were never to be shared, or it would mean disaster and complete destruction. "Daughter," said the king, "we are the chosen ones, the stewards who keep the peace with military might." Her father explained to her that only a strong military could support the trade supremacy that kept the balance of power, peace, and prosperity in their world. This had been taught to him, to his father before him, and to his father's father, and all of his ancestors since time immemorial. He said, "I cannot let these men push this island into a course of action that will lead to our destruction. They simply will not understand." This matter so occupied the king that he called a secret council. By the king's side was his old tutor and adviser, Skiberas, who had been old when the king was just a boy, who alone could command the king. It was even rumored at the time that he was not even from the island of Creta, for that is what the kingdom was called. With Kirtos and Aliotta present, the king explained that he had begun to distrust some of his advisers who had advocated war, and that there were certain questionable meetings and secret plans afoot. It was decided that action must be taken to placate Mycenae, the kingdom to the east that had been duped into challenging the Creta's trade. Skiberas gently reminded them that diplomacy was always the strength of Creta's power, and urged a measured response. Kirtos, who had travelled in his studies, told of the Mycenae and their fear. Their livelihoods were being threatened. There had been earthquakes, ashes raining down, crops threatened, and there was a growing pressure to unite against the trade giant. Kirt then proposed a bold plan to seek a closer alliance with Mycenae, to keep peace and to placate their people. "They want weapons, they want security. Let us teach them to be like us," Kirtos said with the passion and idealism of his youth. Let us send an embassy to Mycenae. As a goodwill gesture, I will lead it. We will take our best ships and offer to their best and brightest young men and women the opportunity to come and study metallurgy and culture here in Creta. These young people will learn our ways and come to respect their reason, and then they will take them back over the sea to Mycenae with new friends they have made, and there will be a peace and understanding. This will not only quell the need to go to war, but it will render moot any machinations within our own walls. The king was thoughtful. Valetta was apprehensive at such a radical idea, but old Skiberas just smiled wryly and said to himself, "Now it begins." And indeed it had begun. Creta sent a grand embassy with Kyrtos to Mycenae. There it was received with great ceremony. Mycenaeans gathering along the shores and in the villages to welcome the embassy, receiving the gifts of fruits, fabrics, spices, oils, and beautifully worked metals that had been brought. It was a great success, and a group of Mycenae's hopeful youth embarked for a grand ship festival procession in the Thera before departing for Creta. The school began to gain prominence and prestige. Each year more students came. Friendships were forged, trade prospered, and peace reigned. Kyrtos and Valetta took on the roles of their station, but they also became close to their old tutor, Skiberas, with whom they began to spend more and more time in conference. This is when Sum enters our story. Old as he was, Skiberas had summoned a successor from his land far to the west, a young man he could train and mold. Sumacco arrived, as was custom, on a fast, sleek ship in a western harbour, with little ceremony other than to be met by the young twins. Soon the three of them had developed a close friendship. They would often sneak out to sail their boat, to explore the caves on the coast, to practice a swordplay, and to talk about other worlds. For Sum had many tales, and Kyrt was taken with his marvelous stories of flying horses, great structures that could change water courses, and all kinds of outlandish things. Sum also told them of an extraordinary half-sunken island in the mist in a narrow sea to the northwest, and he made them memorize how to get there. They swore a solemn oath to keep it a secret amongst themselves, and to tell no one of its existence or location. It was a time of tranquility, of friendship and security. But just as Skiberas had foretold, it was not to last. As all great tragedies do, it began with a small, unexceptional event. One day, one of the students was found dead in the catacombs of the palace near the armory. He had been torn apart as if by a wild animal. When the king's officers and advisers could find no answer to the mystery, They thought the matter closed, but then it happened again, and then again. Creta, Aliotta, and Sum opened their own secret investigation, suspecting at least 2 of the king's advisors. What they found was that the conspirators, who had wanted war before, were now trying to sabotage the alliance, perpetuating the rumor that Creta's plan was not to educate, rather to kill off Mycenae's young people. By the time Kirt, Sum, and Aliotta had found out that this conspiracy stretched to their father's trade and military advisors, it had taken on a life of its own, and the destruction of the peace was already in motion. In a private council with the king, Sum, and all the Sciberas, it was decided that exceptional measures were needed. They would send for help from their old mentors, Sciberas' people. It was a cloudy, inauspicious day when the earthquakes were again a trouble in the region. The sky was purple, and the messenger's body was found one evening washing in the sea near the harbor. Adamant that he could still salvage his plans, the old king called a council with his advisors. But Kirt, Aliotta, Sum, and old Sciberas met in secret, realizing the gravity of their situation. Sciberas, never to leave the king, gave Kirt, Sum, and Aliotta directions he knew they could follow to sail to his island far to the west. Sail for 5 days towards the setting sun. When the currents change and you see a white, smoking mountain to the north, look for the islands of Zagra. There you will find a temple looking out towards the east, easily visible from the sea. That will reveal the entrance to the harbor, the way you were taught to pilot your boat. The next night they said goodbye to Sciberas in a small inlet where their own small boats were kept, away from prying eyes. Their only companion was Brustir, Sciberas' young messenger. As they were loading their ship with supplies, a terrible sight met them. The shipyard and harbor of the palace were on fire, and the glow lit the sky from the other side of the island. Kirt and Aliotta knew that they must succeed, or Creta would be destroyed. If they stopped now to find out their father's fate, they would never be able to leave. At that moment they made their fateful vow. Aliotta would sail alone with loyal Brustir to bring help from the west, while Kirt and Sum would sail northwest into the narrow sea to find the military allies in what would later become Illyria, about whom Sum had spoken. If anything happened, they were to meet on the secret island that Sum had told them about in the narrow sea to the north. Aliotta arrived in good time with Brustir at the temple of Zagra, wearing the shining helmet of a warrior and monarch, carrying a sword, and bearing treasure and gifts for the elders. She was well received and aid was promised. A fleet was prepared, and Aliotta was sailing back with them when it happened. The sky turned black for days. Smoke and lightning rained down from the sky to the east, and the sea churned fitfully. They met a small fleet of refugees from Creta, who had been sailing for days, telling of the complete destruction in Creta and Mycenae. Knowing in her heart the worst, Aliotta sent the embassy and a fleet along with the refugees back to Zagra, and resolved to meet Kirt and Sum at the secret island. She took a well-supplied boat that she could handle alone, with some of the treasure and her royal robes, and sailed into the unknown northern sea alone. For a week she sailed, fishing and going ashore only once to water. She enjoyed her days alone, in contemplation, but she was aware that Sum had said that she must reach the island before winter, when the winds would whip down from the mountains. The evening sun was glowing red-orange in the western sky when she made landfall and secured her small boat in the little cove Sum had described. The mist was rising, and she pulled her heavy royal cloak tightly around her shoulders, walking resolutely inland, her feet barely making sound in their soft, decorated boots. Then she found something she was not expecting. She fell to her knees and cried on the stone with the mark atop it, Sum's grave. Now, let's see if it works. It's working, look. There, I have it. Very nicely done, even if I do say so myself. Yes, this will work. What? Oh yes, I did need something from you, and I have already taken it. It was a thought that crossed your mind. What it was is not important now. I shall wrap up the compass for you. Is there more to the story? But of course. But that must wait for another time, my friend. It is almost done. don't forget. Time to go. Piccolo will take you to my ship. Make sure that once on the mainland you are not followed. Make your way to Venezia and use the packet my lady has given you. Guard this compass with your life, my friend. All will be well. We will meet again. Arrivederci.